Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First and foremost, let me go through the protocols by thanking the Director General of the Development Agenda for Western Nigeria, Dr. Sheye Oyeleye, who has been my brother, friend, as well as compatriots. We have come a long way from the days of Great Ife up till now. I thank you for giving me the platform, not only to participate in everything done, but everything security in the southwest of Nigeria. Thank you very much. I also thank today my head of departments, the head of history, Dr. Muritala Monsuru Olalekan, for also allowing me to participate in this conversation. Because as head of department, if he says no, then it means no. But I thank him for releasing me to come for this. May I also at this juncture thank each and every one of us for dressing up and showing up. Thank you so much. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome. Well, let me begin with a caveat. I also want to inform my compatriots that this is not a political symposium. You heard that? Yes or no? Okay, but what you don't hear is the fact that it is also a political symposium. You didn't hear that? Okay. Because no matter how historians talk or operate, whatever we say is historical, but at the same time, it is also political. But what it is not is a rabble-rousing movement. I don't want a situation in which I'm going to be quoted and you will say Adesina has said so, Aluta must begin now. That's not the purpose. It is just for our self-knowledge. And we hope that this self-knowledge would also inform developments in society. Because as historians, we are members of society, we are also the teachers of society. And so whatever we do, whatever we say, has not only historical significance, but also contemporary significance. And so that's why today, I am talking about contemporary Yoruba elites and the bystander effect. We all look at certain things in society, and people in society will quickly tell you, Kilokembe, Kinitiembe. And that in itself has the bad members of society from participating in other things. And at the end of the day, you hear people saying almost every day, so if they don't read we, and that's why everybody is moving back from a lot of things. In the days when we were growing up, we had those we call the Baba Adubos. These Baba Adubos, they are on every corner. They are busy reading newspapers, but they are also seeing everything you are doing. And when you do certain things that is considered an anathema, they take their cane and flog you. And when they flog you, when your parents come in the evening, they tell them, and your parents will still flog you. But all that is gone now. All that is gone because certain developments have prevented, have precluded them from continuing with the old tradition of Baba Adubo. If you plug these children nowadays, you know they have a spirit and body as strong as the chocolate eclairs. Once you beat them, they die. And then you are in trouble. That ends your Baba Adubo career. So a lot of things have gone. And society is suffering because of these issues. Everybody wants to do daddy, be your own, look after your children. Even the children inside the house, you can't afford to beat them too much. So these are some of the things I'm going to attend to today. And so let's look at contemporary Yoruba elites and what I have called the bystander effect. So I have given you the caveat, but this is my humble attempt as a historian to understand the relationship between tradition and modernity on the one hand, and between the younger and older generations on the other. Those of us who grew up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we were very close in culture, in age, to those before us. But the children from the 90s, 2000s, are so far from us that you cannot even have a conversation together. You cannot. And so right now, society is working at cross purposes. The younger generation does not want to hear what you want to say. The older generation is not listening to the younger generation because they think what they are saying is balderdash. It's the way it is now. And so how do we begin to reconstruct society that a conversation goes on, not only in the house, but also in the street, on the street, but also in our classrooms? No conversation is going on. So when we teach this generation, there is a popular song now. When you are in the classroom now, this younger generation will kill you with the tear of their eyes. So say what you want to say and get out. And that has a discouraging effect on teachers. And so the teacher will also mumble one or two things and then go out. So learning is not going on in this age. It's not going on. And when we say that, people ask us, okay, the university system, so what are you doing? What are you talking about? We acknowledge that gradually the university system is becoming anachronistic. So unless we go back to the drawing board to begin to re-engage culture, re-engage society, re-engage modernity, we will all just be in the classrooms teaching the younger generation that doesn't want to listen. So until the university system itself begins to understand this issue, then the process for recalibrating society will not begin. And we need to do this. Because today, ASU is on strike. Yes, it's all for the best. But in our days, for ASU to be on strike meant you are debarring us from having the opportunity to knowledge. But today, nobody cares. If ASU is on strike 1 month, 2 months, not the government, not the society, which is a very strange development. And so we are begging society to begin to look at all these issues dispassionately. When I was last head of department, 2 of my 400 level, final year students, second semester, dropped out. We were doing their results, putting together their results, and I asked, where are these two students? They didn't sit for their exam. They said, no, they left. I said, why? Second semester, 400 level. They said they are now trading in the Republic of Benin. It shows that, well, as far as they were concerned, it's more profitable for them to become traders in Benin Republic than to continue to stay in the classroom in the university. Only God knows how many millions they now have. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to the day they are going to come to the department to come and greet us with their G-Wagons. And their lecturer will go to his, in fact, they will deliberately park near your Toyota that is 35 years old. And then, of course, greet you very well to make sure you see them. Because it is one thing for them to come, it's another thing for you to see them. For how long are we going to, continue to live this kind of life? So, we are here to explore the landscape inhabited by Africa's most educated and resourceful people, the Yoruba of southwestern Nigeria, whether you like it or not. In Africa, Yorubas know they carry last. Anywhere. And so this is being done within the context of a symbiosis of indigenous knowledge systems, and modernity. We have continued to retain our indigenous knowledge systems, but we are also modern. So the amalgamation of both, what are we getting from it? I am particularly interested in what I would call the tyranny of the elites. This, of course, concerns public interest and the common good. As Edmund Burke said, and I quote him, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. End quote. We have at one point or the other been victims of the erratic nature of our elites. Let me start with a brief background story. And this story concerns Oyo State. I was a citizen of Oyo State until Osun State was carved out from Oyo State on August 27, 1991. And I'm particularly talking to the younger generation who feels that they are suffering, nobody is talking about their suffering, nobody is interested in their suffering, everybody is just behaving as if we don't notice that things are bad for them. And I tell my children that what they are going through now is even so small compared to what we went through in the 1980s with the introduction of the structural adjustment program. You don't want to experience SAP. It was really very bad. No money, no food, no job, nothing. Some of us who didn't even know Lagos would not go to the embassy. We didn't even know about embassy. But nowadays, you know embassies. At least you run away. In our days, what are you going to do in Lagos? It's not your business. So that was a big problem for us. So when we finished NYSC in 1986, there was no job. I'm sure some of the people we graduated together and finished NYSC together in 1986 are still jobless today. Because I was jobless for 5 years, but because I had age on my side, I could still do a lot of things. But in case of so many of them who were already 25 when we finished service, by the time you are unemployed for 5 years, you are already 30. No organization will take you any longer because you are overaged. So if you are crying today that, oh, things are very bad, we also went through it. But why Oyo State is involved in my own matter is this. Just to show you that elites will be elites any day, anytime. So one day, Oyo State, I'm still searching my heart to see how I'm going to forgive Oyo State. They brought out an advert and said they were going to recruit teachers. They used to call them the Central Schools Board or something like that in those days, not Teaching Service Commission. So all of us who were unemployed, maybe about 2,000, 3,000, we showed up at that place. And you know what these people did? We were there for an interview. The panel was there in one big room. The privileged elites, eating granuts, biscuits, drinking Coke, and here are 21, 22, 23-year-olds looking for a job. You know what they did? They were calling us in 30 candidates at the same time. And so they put chairs everywhere. We all sat down. We expected them to be calling us in one by one. But apparently they had already settled the people they were going to take. We were just mere statistics. And so when 30 of us came in, when my group came in, our own batch of 30, one of them said, yes, you are all welcome. Good morning. You, who was Mansa Musa? The guy answered, you, where did the River Niger meet River Benue? Somebody else answered. And in 5 minutes, the interview was over. Nobody asked for our names. Nobody asked for our certificates. Nobody wanted to know anything about us. And yet, from that exercise, people were recruited. How did it happen? I knew those who were recruited. And so, if a young man would not be angry with that one, tell me what else will cause you to develop an anger against society. So the elites at any point had always been backward-looking elites. And I have not seen anything in today's elite that says they are different from that set of people. I hope, we people work with documents. I hope one day I will research at the secretariat looking for something else, and I will get the names of those who interviewed us in. Because it was really unfair. It was unfair. So you begin to understand the bystander effect when you also tell people whom you think would help you to get a job to say, I went to Ibadan today to attend a teaching service commission interview. They say, because they are also powerless. They are also powerless. So how do we begin to understand elites in our society as serious-minded people? How do we begin to call them to order to say what you are doing is not right? It's not right. So if you do not have somebody who can bring you into service, if you do not have your townsmate who can bring you into service, then you're out there growing old gracefully, looking for an employment. So these are very important things that we must begin to engage in society. I am trying to show a video of 2 or 3 people that will convey the kind of anger young people are feeling about the elites, about society today. But Dawn Commission is still following my hands in setting this up, but I'm sure they will get it right. Okay. Like many of my generation, I was a victim of the Nigerian elite's lack of capacity and empathy. Our economy collapsed. And I tell people till now that Nigerians do not have any business with poverty. We are too rich, too endowed to be poor. So what are they doing? Even if they tell you Nigeria is broke, okay, let us, for the sake of argument, accept that. Nigeria is broke, but some people are still spending dollars. Their children are doing very well. Okay, so why should some people have and we don't have? We pump crude oil every day. We have gold reserves everywhere. Yet some people are exploiting these gold reserves and benefiting from it. So the conclusion about that is Nigerians do not have any business suffering from poverty. So how do we begin to call the elites to order? This is very important. Yes, from the 1980s, we began to feel the effects of the ruling elite's reckless management of the nation. Okay, if we all belong to Nigeria, we understood that. But that region that is our own, how do we begin to utilize the resources of that region to train our children, to make life worth living for our children, and then we ignore what is happening elsewhere? We understood the deep-rooted issues of corruption, ethnicity, insensitivity, and ultimately selfishness. Our elites are selfish. They're very selfish. Add to that the narrative that the Kaduna Mafia was controlling the country because each age has its own narrative. The elites of your region will point to the elites of another region as your problems. When we were growing up, the narrative we had was the Kaduna Mafia. That the Kaduna Mafia was controlling everything, they are stealing everything, they are giving all the positions to their own people. Okay, we believed. We believed. And diverting all our resources and opportunities to the north, we believed. Then, like Paul on the way to Damascus, this truth started to dawn on us. We realized that elites from the north were not different from those from the east or the west. Their approach to nation building was driven by self-interest. Later, I even recognized that elites were not just the educated ones. So when we talk about the elites, it's not the educated ones alone. There were also non-literate elites, traditional leaders, market leaders, both men and women, transport workers, and others. Within their own groups, they have their own elites. So I will not label the westernized top echelon of society, the ones who steer the country in various ways, as the elites. So I'm not talking about the Western educated elites alone, the political elites. At every layer of society, we have our elites. So who are these elites? Elites are the dominant figure in society. They exist at different layers of society. However, in this context, I am interested in examining elites from various layers: political, economic, social, modern, and indigenous. I was convinced that elites of all kinds have, at some point, contributed to society's problems, and of course, its solutions. So don't let's think that they are there to cause problems alone. Some of them have given us solutions, Awolowo was one of those who was one of the modern elites, and we saw the kind of solution he brought to Western Nigeria. I will consider elites as those who sustain their status and influence beyond even the levels of the state. For example, religious elites are not limited to the clergy. They also include alfas, marabouts, traditional priests, seers, witches, and wizards, among others. Don't you even know that among the witches, there are elites? Oh, how did you know that? Are you part of them? So there are elites. Because some of them will tell you, I get my mind, you know. In this discussion, I have recognized elites not only as the educated class, but also as those who operate beyond formal education. At various levels, they are known to hold disproportionate power over society, even outside formal educational structures. They often derive their elite status from political affiliations, wealth, military rank, cultural influence, and social networks and connections, which they use to gain advantage and maintain dominance. At every layer of society, there exists a coterie, a small exclusive group sharing common interests or tastes. For the sake of argument, let us identify our elites. They comprise the educated, political, military, religious, and cultural elites. So if we have a coterie of elites, why is society upside down? Why are they conferring advantages on their own children, close friends, and relatives? Ebenezer Obey apprehended this in the 1970s with his song. I'm sure many of you would not know it, this young generation. You know, so they have identified some people in society to say, we flock together. You are not part of us. It has always been there. And if they use their advantageous positions for us, we will thank them and recognize them that, yes, they are the fathers of society. But there is always the refrain from them to say, "Ọmọ ta ni wọ́n lè? Ta ni bàbá tiẹ̀ ń lè?" These are some of the things we have witnessed at different points in society. Are we victims of bystander effect? And how this affect Yoruba land? And so arising from this, there is what you call elite circulation and distinction. There is always a distinction of being members of the elite. Scholars have identified how elites, disproportionate power and influence are maintained. This may be through violence. If you're a member of the elite, you should be able to use at least one of these approaches. Maybe violence, cunning, being extremely smart, control over institutions, inherited statuses, access to resources, and social networks. Some of our elders belong to clubs, not because they are actually interested in the clubs, but because of the advantages they can derive from being members of those clubs. And so if you are looking for a job, you may even get asked, which club does your father belong to? And you say, oh, he doesn't belong to any club. You already have your answer. You can't be part of us. And so that has created the bystander effect. I will explain this borrowed concept as simply as possible to help us understand why it is invoked in relation to life and existence in Southwest Nigeria. A clear definition linked to this is a social psychology phenomenon. It's social psychology. Two researchers, Bibb Latane and John Daly, are recognized for their pioneering work describing this effect. It is straightforwardly described as a phenomenon, quote and unquote, where individuals are less likely to help a victim when other people are present, with the probability of receiving help decreasing as the number of bystanders increases. Key individuals feel less personal responsibility to act because others are present. And social influence, where people look to others' behavior for cues on how to act. So once you have people grouped together somewhere, the probability of somebody receiving help becomes more remote because the next person is looking at the next person to say he will help or he should be able to help. Recently, I was listening to a preacher, and the preacher was invoking the name of Sunday Igboho. Hey, I'm waiting for Sunday Igboho to act. You unko? You unko is only, you know, Yorubas have this concept of ọmọlọ́mọ ló ń jẹ́ dé tòrutòru. Ọmọlọ́mọ ló ń jẹ́ dédéjò. Ọmọlọ́mọ ni. And it's one of those bystander effects. To say, my children, move back. Those who can kill the snake are coming. It's bystander effect. So when are we going to say, no, my children, go there, do it? But they prefer to protect their own children so that you can then be used as a cannon fodder. And so, in Yoruba land, it is sometimes invoked as kinitiembe. Kinitiembe, kilokoe. So this is my definition of that. So let us then look at Yoruba land in context. Why is Yoruba land also involved in this bystander effect? We are dealing with a highly educated, cosmopolitan, and sophisticated region where men and women have developed a strong sense of purpose and dignity. We developed that. But what happened to it? How, at the end of the day, did we become what we have become? And you ask me what we have become. And so, is the video ready? Okay, please play the first one. Okay. Well, I hope, okay. Please kindly listen to what this guy is saying. You may agree with him, you may disagree with him, but let's listen. No, it doesn't, you want to use the microphone? No, it's not working. Okay, well, let them be trying until they are ready. No, that's the Oshun one. No, we are not ready for that one. Here's the other one. I opened this one. I opened it in the PowerPoint. It's the first one you played. Well, given the region's diverse population, it is important to classify. No, that's the Osun one. That one is also open. I'm still going to call for the Osun one later. Yeah. Well, it is important to classify the area that is Western Nigeria as highly urbanized, complex, and challenging. Yeah, this one. Yes, this one. Not showing. Well, so I hope you get it right. Okay. Well, it is a region that has made significant progress, both within the modern Nigerian state and independently. The livelihoods of the people include agriculture, trade, commerce, ironwork, weaving, and other crafts. We were renowned for our empires, kingdoms, and other social formations. Despite colonial invasion, we retain our identity and stature as a group. Our attachment to our traditional ways of life remains as strong as ever. But it is also a region at a crossroads. This is because both tradition and modernity are vying for control over the hearts and minds of the people. There is also a serious generational crisis, which is where I am actually going. There is a generational crisis, as both the young and old are in stark conflict over life and societal expectations. During the pre-colonial period, Yoruba society knew how to maintain order and promote human and societal progress. Land was plentiful and managed by customs. The Yoruba ideology revolves around dignity, candor, and honesty. Tangible cooperation and coexistence are embodied in ways of life through which existence is negotiated. But we no longer find this in the contemporary period. We have started to jettison some of the values and traditional practices that made the Yoruba, Yoruba. And so I have made a sustained effort to understand the real world issues faced by the Yoruba in the 20th and 21st centuries. But I was caught up in the bystander effect. However, this did not happen when Ibadan at the Battle of 1840 fought the Fulani at Oshogbo. This did not prevent Yoruba groups and individuals from caring for each other and their communities. So what changed? What changed? The British introduced their divide and rule tactics, and we began to limit our interventions to ourselves. And so who are the Yoruba today, and how do they differ from those of the past? An important question is, what are we accusing them of? Let me start by stating that through our acts of commission or omission, we are all guilty of been bystanders in our journey through history to the future. All of us, we are all bystanders. You know, there was a skit that went around sometimes 2-3 months ago. In that skit, the Hausa boys were showing us brave, bloody. To say, kill me today, kill me today. For the Igbo, it showed, kill me, but buy this thing before you die. But for the Yoruba, as he was running away, he was running and shouting, Ori Yamio. You know, that's the way they saw it. Although I have read Adekunle Benjamin, Brigadier Benjamin, disavowing that, to say most of the people in the 3rd Marine Commando were Yorubas. And that those boys under his command, I'm quoting him verbatim now, that those boys under his command fought like Shege. So don't think we are lazy. So where is that coming from that, oh, Yorubas, ease of life, ease of existence, they just want Igbadun, that's it. No, where did this come from? Is it not the same Yoruba group that defeated the Fulani at Ilorin through the instrumentalities of Ibadan? So we have to go back to understand what the Yoruba stood for in the past and how we can maintain that integrity and identity as a brave, hardworking, and resolute people. And that is the thing that we have to talk about in the modern period. In the 1950s and 60s, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, through a conscious policy and doctrine of a life more abundant for all, began to expand educational access for the people of the region. That advantage established the Western region as a leader in almost every sphere of life. We became the envy of others. The region forged ahead and life was good. Then the honeymoon ended. Regionalism was abolished, and we were packed together with other groups in a federation where might became right. So, what is the core of our existence as a people? In understanding, okay. I'm a fucking graphic that you are telling me. It's not job in this country. Listen to this. But because this country makes it so hard for us, and you can't make an honest living and be rich in this country. Why is it so? We are really suffering. We are really suffering. I don't know how some people have been suffering for over 6 years of your life and can't come out. This is just 9 months of my life on the streets of Lagos, and I am tired. Some people over 30 years of your life, you can't come out. Why? Just up and know the tire on and why not they do like this? Nigerians, stop being cowards. I'm still telling you that my father is a coward. He's scared of coming out. Adeboye, you're a coward. Oyedebo is a coward. Let them leave the church. Let the church come outside. These people are ready to die for them. If they tell me to say maybe we do 70 days fasting, they go 12. If they tell me to come outside now, they don't come out because they don't come. So you can see the orientation of this youth to say, those of you who think we are there, so we can use the second one now. Down to okay. No, this one. Those of you who were before, since 1960, you didn't do anything. You didn't say anything. You know, and so, yes, listen to this second one. This one even has a template that is more frightening. You can't find it. There is the play section under the, yes, below the, well, so what is the core of our existence as a people? In our understanding of the ideas that led to the development of Yoruba land, the Ifa corpus has remained one of the most iconic tools of knowledge and knowledge production. Yoruba land has produced methodology, sculpture, visual and verbal arts, herbs, philosophy and crafts and arts. Morality and ethics are part of the cultural repertoire. What is Yoruba cosmology? As Yoruba people, we have been conditioned for years to remain committed to nurturing our collective consciousness. In this context, you have the principles of hard work, identity, purpose, and a clear mission. In this context, and the clear mission, these are reflected in explicit mantras that shape our existence and pursuit of meaning. And when we talk of the Yorubas, we are talking about people who are wise, wisdom, ọgbọ́n, knowledge, ìmọ̀, experience, ìrírí, intelligence, òye, làákàyè, introspection, iṣẹ́, hard work, ọmọlúàbí, integrity. These are things that actually propel Yoruba land from the past to the present. But like this guy said, all these things have been thrown out of the window simply because the elites are not doing what is proper. So the younger Yoruba boys and girls no longer trust those who are before them. And let us see the problems we are facing in the land now. Inadequate attention by political and social forces has turned us into beneficiaries of inadequate governance. We are all observers of the disasters of youth unemployment, drugs, and migration. These have apparently evolved through resource misuse. Resource misuse. Wastefulness. We are also firmly ensconced in a country where a large percentage of the population craves lawlessness and impunity. And that's where I told you about the Baba Dugos. Lawlessness and impunity. Baba Dugo will come to your house after observing what you did in the morning and say, pẹ̀lẹ́ kí lorúkọ tiẹ̀ o, so that he doesn't misrepresent the person that he's going to report. Once you tell him the name, he goes to your father and say, ọmọ yín gungi, ó gungi láàárọ̀. Tọ́pẹ́ ni. So you know you are in trouble. But nowadays, these Baba Dugbos no longer just care about what happens in their neighborhood. The tradition in those days ni pé ojú kan ló ń bí ọmọ, ìgbà ojú ló ń wò. Is it still the same thing today? No. All these things are gone. They are gone. And that is why today we are going through problems without borders. Problems without borders. You know, inadequate attention by political and social forces turned us into beneficiaries of inadequate governance because people no longer care what they say about them. In those days, they tell you, not your humanity one ṣe. Now, what is more prevalent is, orúkọ tó ń wọ́n mọ́, ń jẹ́ lẹ́yìn odi. You know, and so it's now a matter of my teeth is better than yours. See the way Ibori was welcomed in his state. At least he developed his society. People got so much money. And so he's a good man. But if you go into government nowadays, you are clean, you didn't steal anything that you could share with your people, you are a bad man. That is what it is now. This is really very unfortunate. And that is why we have problems without borders, no junction, nothing. You know, these have apparently evolved through misuse or resource misused. And that is why lawlessness and impunity are the order of the day. Then now we have what I call the fear within. The fear within. Part of the reason why we all no longer sleep very well is because we lost control. So there is the fear within. Yoruba land is now ruled by fear and suspicion. Once upon a time, we enjoyed good neighborliness. That was not even too long ago. We ate in our neighbors' houses with friends on the road from school when we share goody-goody, treble, and even kuli-kuli, as well as atamba daddy. You know, all these things, they will tell you, you can catch disease from eating atamba daddy. We ate atamba daddy like no man's business. Even though they told us at home that all these things, you should not buy and eat them. But because we felt we were okay. Me, I preferred the tea from the Hausas at Sabo than the tea from home. You know, because, you know, there was something about it, the way they pour it and re-pour it. You know, we had no fear. We had no suspicion. You know, all within living memory, we can still recollect all these things. Now we are all afraid, all of us. We are afraid of witches and wizards. Oh, the day we are no longer afraid of witches and wizards, all our churches will close down. They will close down. Because by the time pastor tells you there is somebody in your house, the person is tall. That is the source of your problem. Who doesn't have tall people in their homes? You know? And even worse, we are afraid of our children. We are afraid of our children. That is very unfortunate. Now it is you who explain to your children. In our days, it was we who explained to our parents. Oh, why did you do this? You must explain. But now we as parents are the ones explaining to our children. It's on the other side. We are now engaged in a crisis of self-immolation. We are influenced by our customs, culture, and tradition. Churches and mosques have exploited this to manipulate our fears. Nollywood has become a major channel for this fear. Nollywood is part of the problem. Because, yes, my wife does not agree with me on this because she tells me that it is what they see in society that they use to make their films. I said, yes, it could be that, but the way they have embellished it is beyond control. People now use handkerchief on the heads of small children to take their asiki away. You find this in Nollywood. Find it in Nollywood. Somebody told me that one of his best foods was ekuru. I also love ekuru. But he said when he continually had on a film that what it be ekuru jello ebora. He began to ask the relationship between ekuru and ebora. And so that was the day he ate ekuru last. These are issues. They might look very ordinary, But the significance for the youth of this age is significant. Of course, at every juncture, you can also find potsherds with sacrifices. And of course, for every sacrifice, you will also find palm oil. So when my children were growing up and I said, I have never seen you in this house eating yam and palm oil, they looked at me as if something was wrong with me. How could somebody be eating palm wine with yam? And yet in our days, it was one of the best delicacies. No, they don't eat that one any longer. It's about, even when I buy cocoa yam, I am the only one who eats it. You know? When the last Order of Ife died, and I followed the conversation of the Gen Z online. And for weeks, they didn't bury the Order of Ife. And the conversation was, they were still looking for some ingredients that they were going to use. Well, nobody knew what it was, but these Gen Zs got into their heads and began to exchange online and said, Ife people, tell us these ingredients. Let us help you look for it. And then somebody said, oh no, they are still looking for stragglers, for non-Ife children who will pass through Ife. It's not me saying it, I'm just reporting. No. That such people are the ones that they are going to use as sacrifice, and then of course bury with the Oni. I don't know. I have never been there. And then another person said, what is wrong with these Yoruba gods? Why are they interested in blood in these days when they could be propitiated with shawarma? So you could see that it's a different age. Even when you tell them that don't pass through Ife during this period, they say, why? But in our days, we knew why. We knew why. You know, so society has turned full circle to begin to question a lot of things that we did not question in our days. You know, so these are some of the things that have changed our society. We have now brought up a YouTube generation. Everything is YouTube. If it is not on YouTube, it's not important. So the language, culture, and narratives of this group are frightening. What are the contemporary narratives? It is because they are content creators. Everything is content. They're creating content. But for those of us who are a little bit elderly, we go back to the Yoruba culture of trying to find answers to some of these problems from our proverbs. You know what we say? Ogedembaje, alongpon. It's out of control. It's a different generation. We don't have the same language. We don't have the same expectations. We don't have the same culture. But we are all missing something. The happiness of the youth is the safety and happiness of everyone. That's one thing we are all missing. So how do we go back to the drawing board to begin to look at this all over again? You know, so one of the changes to be experienced is the subculture. There is now a subculture, different from the superstructure of society. These are identity-forming categories. Subcultures emerge because the dominant culture does not meet the needs or interests of members of the particular subculture. Subcultures have emerged all over the place. And that is why you now have the Yahoo Yahoo, you have the Yahoo Plus. If you come to a societal gathering now, and the Yahoo Yahoo boy comes with his money, with his car, and with his agbada, he's respected before that professor who is wearing his suit that he bought in 1980. And yet he's a professor. You know, these are the kind of things that have changed. You know, so this is in contradistinction to the dominant culture or dominant people in a particular part of society. So right now we have become the hippopotamus generation. You all know how the hippopotamus is: fat, very slow, lumbering all over the way. We are now the hippopotamus generation. Well, the other generation is now the cheetah generation. The cheetah is regarded as the fastest animal in the world. Because in your own case, you sit down, do introspection, think very well before you take a decision. But this younger generation will take a decision and apologize later. That is what it is. Because they don't know why you should sit down and begin to think. And so that is why we now have the Japa generation. The blatant disregard of intellectuals and the education sector by the political class has caused us immense hardships and enormous resource losses. And we are all watching. It's part of the bystander effect. We are all watching. Even if you don't have the money, you are going to borrow the money so that your children can japa. And so you are in debt all over the place. This is, thank you. This is part of the problem we have now. We are all in debt. And now Kemi Badenoch is helping to send our children home. We are going to be in trouble soon because the money they are sending, remittances they are sending home before will stop. It's going to stop. You know, me, I won't say here, and it's not going to come from my mouth to ask what Kemi Badenoch is doing. You know, but of course, the effect on our children overseas is also very serious. Same thing with Trump in America. Only God knows how many of our children they have, you know, dumped here quietly that we don't know about. And so, what are we doing? Because we are going to have a deluge on our hands very soon. How is Yoruba land preparing to make life worth living for the people they are sending back home? Some of our roads are terrible. Those ones they repaired last year are now bad. And then you begin to ask, so why is it that these roads are bad so quickly? You know, these are some of the things we have to begin to look at. And then, of course, the scramble for a better life and immigration-generated revenue was part of those things that encouraged our children from spending so much at the embassies. 2-3 years ago, you see the number of people who left these shores. And they paid so much because those countries wanted to make money. Now they have made their money. They have allowed the children to stay there for 2-3 years. Now they are asking them to go back home. Some of those who left 3-4 years ago sold their houses. Now they are in trouble. They don't even know how to come back home. Some of them are already in this country quietly, and they have moved to other communities. So let us begin to look at our society and see how we can, at the end of the day, help society to stabilize and then give the younger generation the capacity for all of us to help in engaging in poverty eradication. Because part of what is leading to this Japa syndrome is poverty. If one person gets there, at least remittances will help us solve some of this problem. But what is our government doing? Look, I'm not talking about northern governments or eastern governments. I'm talking about Yoruba governments. It's easy to stay here and say, oh, the federal government. No. our own people, what are they doing to stabilize society? But we are suffering from a lot of issues. And that takes me to understanding the concept of me, myself, and I. That is what rules us in society now. It is about me. Of course, that makes three people. Me, myself, and I. All those three people must be satisfied before anybody else. This is very unfortunate. We are now viewed by the younger generation as parasites and predators, which we are. We are parasites and predators. You are only angry with Wasiu when he talked about Ganusi. We all want to Ganusi where we have not produced. We have not produced. But because our expectations and our desires and our consumption patterns has become out of control, that's why now everything should come to me, me, me. If they put you in a position, 3 of your children must find employment before anybody else. That's not fair. And so if we don't get society back, and if we don't get our people to understand that what we are creating in society is the problem of tomorrow, then we are going to, look at this guy. He says he's a fucking graduate, to borrow his language, and that is smarter than Mark Zuckerberg. But because he doesn't even know where to turn, no job, no money, nothing, how are we going to help the generation to create wealth? What are we going to do? And I'm not talking about what we teach them in classroom. Beyond the classroom, we have to go to the drawing board. And that takes me actually to what I have called the grand strategy. Well, I have always talked to the DG about creating a grand strategy of the Yoruba society. By the time we create a grand strategy, we look at the issues, we look at the problems, we look at how to get them interested in what we are proposing, and we look at how to marshal resources from everybody in society. Oh, we all pay tax already, don't you know? And I don't mean government tax. We all have what is known as the black tax. The black tax, we all pay it. By the time you find a job, your parents will expect you to take care of them and take care of your younger ones. And so if you are the one who is not selfish, before you can buy a color TV as a young graduate working, it will take some time, because your parents must be satisfied, your younger ones must be satisfied. So for some time, your young wife may end up going to the neighbor's house to watch television. And you know the problem with that one. And so we are all looking on creating a generation that is OYO. You are your own. But I am not going to blame all of us for this. I am also going to blame the traditional institution. The traditional institution is there. They are really not solving some of the problems of society. And so I have waited patiently to see which of our historians will call many of our traditional rulers to order, not only on their consumption patterns, but over the pretentious title of His Imperial Majesty. If you find a Yoruba Oba with the population of his village actually being in the region of 2,000, he wants to be addressed as His Imperial Majesty. But nobody is talking. Nobody is calling anybody to order. We all saw the disagreement between the Oni and the Alaafin. And I waited for historians to weigh in on the last controversy. Nobody talked. Nobody. Either because they were tired of the whole wahala, or because we have written books, nobody is reading. We have granted the interviews, nobody was listening. And so we left the Oni and the Alaafin to fight it out. It's not something that should be the order of the day when our children are jobless, when we expected them to facilitate industries into their homestead. We expected them to go on the lookout for their children to be placed in good positions all over the place. Now you are fighting over who was superior. Of course, as historians, we know who is superior. We know. You want me to say it? Àwọn alákòóbá. When we were younger, our rulers were known and addressed as His Royal Highness. But for many of our royal fathers, His Imperial Majesty is neither appropriate nor fitting as a suitable title. And so as they are doing their own, we are watching our younger ones getting money in society by all means possible. And part of this is also because some of them want to be conferred with titles by the traditional rulers. Nobody is asking where you got this money. Nobody. When even traditional rulers also join them in doing this thing. You know, I won't mention names. So. So the problems of primitive accumulation living in Nigeria has proved enormously challenging for our youth. While millions of young people are roaming the streets in search of non-existent jobs, the children of the rich are having a ball. It does violence to human heart to live in poverty in the midst of plenty. And that is what is happening. You know, we'll also have the problem of parental choices. They are also looking on. The education system is looking on. In fact, it is comatose now. Culture and community is moving backwards. You know, this is part of the problem. The property class has not felt compelled to intervene in societal issues. There is greed, the family structure is collapsing, and the economy is in the doldrums. So we must have, we must reform the complaint system. If you complain now, nobody is going to take up your case. You can't make money, you can't complain to anybody, you don't have solution to any problem, so everybody is just there looking on. You know, so citizens' rights must be upheld through a system that is friendly and accessible. A system meant to serve the interests of citizens has instead become their master. So now we have family values and societal decadence. There is a problem, you know? And then, of course, at this stage, we now need to rebrand Yoruba nationalism. This is not about politics alone, but it's also about bringing back our backyard farming, cleaning. Somebody went to the UK to say she went to a secondary school in which she was told to fetch water and sweep and cut grass. Who among us didn't do it? It didn't kill us. In fact, it's part of what made us to understand the work ethics and the ethos of helping society. And so nowadays, our children will look at it and say, well, it's not their business. They are going to school, but they don't wake up until 7 o'clock. They have nothing to do inside the house before they leave for school. They will finish eating and put their plates in the sink. You know, we have served our parents Now we are serving our children. That is where we are. And we are all looking on. There is a problem. There is a problem. So, you elites, let us wake up. But of course, part of the problem is state capture. Some people have captured the state. They are not using the resources very well. I have seen the Ogun State government recruiting 1,200 people in one day. That is not a productive way of spending state money, and it is also not going to add to productivity. So let me conclude by looking at the rise and fall of the Omoluabi ethos. We can talk from now till kingdom come about the loss of societal values. This most probably in the stark reality of parents helping to compromise examinations, cyber crimes, and people committing grand larceny in government. It is worrisome when people believe that government's money is nobody's money, and so can be siphoned at will. In the past, when someone without any visible means of livelihood suddenly rolls in money, then society will take him to task as to the source of his wealth. And that is why at every talk I give, I always like to go back to the song of those days. I'm sure these children wouldn't know it, but I hope you would help me to sing it. Kini wo fo le ṣe láyé tí mo wá? Kini wo fo le ṣe láyé tí mo wá? Láyé tí mo wá, kàkà kí n jalè, kàkà kí n jalè, má kúkú ṣẹrú. Kini wo fo le ṣe láyé? But nobody cares about that any longer. If you jale, you are smart. You are smart. You know, people come home with chicken caught from somewhere in society, and you see them killing it and boiling it. You are not asking, where are we going to start? So we must change the mindset by creating a Yoruba land grand strategy. Now that we can see that Yoruba land has changed and that old traditional values and ideas no longer work, we need a grand strategy that serves our society and provides the clear direction needed to rebuild. Our young people are versatile, imbued with creative ingenuity. We should add value to what they are. Nigeria owes our youth a more prosperous life, and we must insist on this. Even if we cannot insist on this, let Yoruba land insist on this. The resources available to us are immense. On the continent of Africa, we have the hardest working, most resilient, intelligent, and ambitious youth population. They are extremely bright and globally competitive. At this stage of our development, we need to start building a self-sustaining economy that can provide employment for our children. Let us generate knowledge of progress and development. It is incumbent on all of us to wake up, empower our youths, and redirect their minds towards driving sustainable development, thereby reducing poverty in this country. Let Yoruba land lead and encourage other regions to wake up. We should no longer allow those who attain high office through forged documents to dictate the direction of our youth. Let us stand together to steer this and support the younger generation with our strength and spirit. After all, Israel has transformed the desert into farmland, generated electricity from its expressways, and China has advanced its youth study abroad and return home. Nigerians don't return home. However, our own circumstances continue to raise further questions What do our higher educational institutions teach? What do we do with the knowledge produced? We have the knowledge, the resilience, and the can-do spirit. All we need now is to innovate and ignite new ideas that will take us beyond the ordinary. To motivate effort and foster extraordinary capacities, we must boost finances and enhance our productive processes. We need to act now. Thank you for your attention.